Hello and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Wade Acuff. I am going to be your host for the next couple of weeks for these Photoshop Creative Challenges. If you don't know me, I'm a freelance artist, animator, and illustrator. And we've got some fun challenges coming up this next couple of weeks, including today's challenge. And before we get into it, though, I do want to say hello to chat. If you see me looking over here, that's me looking at chat. And if you have any questions, be sure to get them in. I'm going to try to keep up with it as best as I can. For other ways to get involved, there are links in the description below. We've got a Discord so that you can get feedback for all your challenges. That's at bit.ly/psdiscord. I want to say, give a shout out to Annika for being our mod today. I see some others in here, RB, Marcia, what's up? Frank, good to see everybody. All right, let's jump into today's challenge, shall we? There is a starter file. There's just a prompt in there today. And that prompt is this: animating with variable type, create an Instagram story with variable type using Photoshop. It doesn't have to be an Instagram story. It can be pretty much whatever you want to do. This is just the format we're kind of going with. If you want to make an Instagram story, we got you covered. Before we get to that, though, we have to talk a little bit about what variable fonts are. And we'll do that by going over to fonts.adobe.com. Over at Adobe Fonts, you'll see that there is a browse all fonts right up here at the top, which is great because it's gonna take us to some filters over on the left-hand side. The very first one says variable fonts. Click on that and you'll get all of the variable fonts. You'll notice a little icon next to this with a little, looks like a little A with a slider. That's going to tell you that these are variable fonts. Let's go into what we're going to use today. We're going to use JetLab as one of our fonts. Let's see. Okay. Maybe we can get into it. Hello? There we go. Okay. But what's cool about this, and I'm just going to type in something here and say, hello, chat. Don't need that. But you'll notice over here, you've got a bunch of variables. This is why it's called variable fonts. You've got a bunch of variables to adjust. If you look at the preset styles, notice these little fields change as we make a selection for our type. That is how we're getting all our different type options. But you can come in here and slide these around and decide how you want this to look. But more, I think is a little bit more fun. You can grab these handles and kind of move them around. This is what I do to decide what I want to animate, how I want things to look when I'm animating, and you can kind of just move things around, see what you're working with. And just a couple of things to note. In other programs, these may be in a different order. They'll all be there, but they'll be in a different order. You'll notice that in Photoshop in a minute. And with the different fonts, sometimes the variables have different names. That's it. And I'll show you that as we get into it as well. So let's jump back into Photoshop. And I'll show you how we started this off, but it's just going to be laying out type at the beginning. But I just started with a new project, 1080 by 1920 vertical, just to simulate a phone screen. And I just started with a solid, nope, not a gradient. I guess you could do a gradient. But I started with a solid color, just adding an adjustment layer here. But we're not going to go into laying out type, because then you would just press T, grab a type tool, start typing, and type things out as you see fit. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you guys will know how to do that as we jump into the kind of already laid out, so that let me explain what we're doing first. How about that? That might be a good thing. So as an artist, we're always wanting to grow, some artistic growth, but sometimes you need a little space for that growth. So I came up with a little saying that's just grow away and leave me to hone. I'm working on my craft. That is what we're going to be working with today. And you can see this is all from the animated type in Photoshop, and that's what we're aiming to get to today. But I want to get straight to the animation because it does take a minute. Let's see. So yeah, we've got our type already laid out for us. Mostly, we do have to add grow and hone. So I'm going to select the type tool by pressing T. And then, let's see, type in growth. Don't need that enter. Also need to change the font, which is good because I want to show you guys in the character. If you don't have the character window open, you can go to Windows, go over to character. It'll pop this up for you. Right now, I have the other font selected. It's called CC This Man, This Monster. It's also a variable font, and we'll jump to that in a minute. But I want to make sure that you know about these filters. If I turn both of these off, these are all of the fonts that I have available for me in Photoshop. If I turn this Creative Cloud logo on, it will give me all the Adobe fonts. And if I turn this star on, these are the ones that I previously liked or starred. And so I'll go down here to JetLab, and also notice there is a VAR little indicator of variable. So that lets you know that these are variable fonts. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to make one adjustment here just to get that tracking out, and then change the color to something a little more yellow. Oh, not growth. Growth away. Grow. All right. But now we have our, if you look in the properties window, which if you don't have that up, you can go to window properties and pull that up. You can see that we have our variables. They are in a different order than they were on the Adobe Fonts page, but that's okay. I am going to slide these around so you can see what that looks like. There'll be a little bit of an update as we go. But I do want to make this maximum size at first, and I'll explain this why, because I'm still just laying out this font to kind of make it look, you know, quote unquote good. Let's see, I'm going to scale this up by pressing Control Command T, and I'm just going to hold down Shift and Alt or Option just so that it scales uniform. And I'm just going to pull this up. I'm just going to eyeball it, place it in here. If you want to, you can use the align tools up at the top and make sure they're set to canvas, and you can just nudge that and it'll go straight to the center of the canvas. And I need to make a copy of this for hone. So if you press Alt or Option and just drag down, you'll get a copy. And I think I want this to be a little bit smaller because I don't want this to be as big as growth will be. And I'm going to set this to its beginning stage. I want this to be at lift is down to 0. These are just settings I've chosen. Feel free to play around with it and make it your own. And actually, while we're talking about that, do whatever you want. You don't have to do this phrase. I prefer you not do this phrase. Make up your own little saying. You know, find a fun quote or something. It might be something fun to do with the 36 Days of Type, which is still going on. Anyway, back to this. We want to change this to hone. And then I want to get an idea of where we are with hone by bringing down our horizontal and verticals, because we're gonna make this one shrink. Grow is going to grow and hone is going to shrink because we're honing in, we're focusing in. All right, so now we're going to move on to the animation part. I'm going to rearrange this. And our layer panel is about to be really popular because we can't animate without a timeline. And I'm going to turn everything off over here except for our background. And I'm going to go into Window, Timeline, and bam, we have a timeline. I'll explain a little bit about the timeline. You don't need to know a whole lot, except one of the things is it's pretty much a mirror almost of the layer panel, because as you can see, as I'm selecting the layer, it's just grabbing that same layer in the timeline. We have a playhead, which is what this little red line is. We've got our working space, which is what this indicates, these little brackets. We've got a scale, so you can kind of scale up how much time you're seeing. And then you've got a little slider to move around. And that's the basics of that. I did set this up for 12 frames a second. So if you go set timeline frame rate, you'll see that we're at 12 frames per second. mostly so we don't have as many frames to animate. And another thing I want to show is we've got a pull down. Let's see, if I go to grow, you've got a little toggle over here. This is another way to animate in Photoshop. We're not going to be using any of those. We're not going to be using any of these, but I did want to show how they work. So we're just going to transform. If you press the stopwatch, you'll get a keyframe. Move down the timeline. We're going 6 frames down the timeline. I'm going to press Control T. And as I move this, as I scale this up, you'll see another frame pop in here. And feel free to use this, but this is not animating a variable, just to let you know. This is just an interpretive keyframe. And we could use this if we wanted to in addition to, but we're not going to do it. But I just want to let you know that that is there. So let's get to actually working on these variables and animating these properties. I'm going to grab, we're only going to be dealing with 1 frame at a time. So thinking about this like a stop motion animation where it's frame, 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 and you're only seeing that frame as the timeline moves. So we only need frames, 1 single individual frame. There's a couple of ways to do this. You can, I just trimmed this by grabbing the edge, and you can do that from either direction if you want. But I trimmed it, moved it all the way down to 1 frame. So that's one way you could do this. Or, because we're going to make copies of these. Or you can move the playhead and come over here to split at playhead. Move down 1 more frame, split at playhead. Continue all the way down. We need about 8 frames of this. That's about all we need. And let's see. So that's one way to do it. Let me pull this back. And if you notice, as I do this, let me do this one more time. As I do this, I'm going to split this again. It's just making another copy. Over in our layers panel, you just see another copy. So the other way to do this is just grab these, hold Alt or Option and drag up. Copy 5, copy 6, copy 7, and copy 8. But then you got to move these over. Which you can grab more than one just by holding Shift, just like you would with the Layers panel, and press Control or Command to deselect one of them as you go along. It's just like the Layers panel. This one I'm going to go ahead and drag out to our full 3 seconds. We'll pop back over. Now we can animate. And by animate, I mean just we're going to be changing the values in the variables, and that's it. Now we could do this linearly, where it's just like a machine moving, but I want it to be a little more organic, so I want to have a little bit of ease in and out. So all I'm going to do for that is start off with increments of 5. And you know what? We need to start with 0 for growth. We need to turn everything down. Our verticals, or our horizontals, and our lift all need to be set to 0. All right. Now, moving forward, if we add 5 to that, then we're just going to be at, an increment of 5 on our verticals, horizontal, and lift. So I'm just going to be moving down the line. This one's going to go up 5. Select the next frame, add 10 to 5, and you get 15. You guys are going to have to check me on my math. I'm going to keep looking at at the chat to make sure. Select the next layer, or frame in this case. It is still a layer, surprisingly. So then we're at what, 20? So that would be 15 plus 20 is 35. 35. 35. 35 plus 20 is 55. And you could make this a lot more frames. You could do whatever you want to, but you'll see, oops, didn't quite make it with that one. 55. You'll see that, there's a little bit of legwork. So then we're at 75, 75, 75. And then I'm going to slow it down. So I don't have quite the same amount of frames to slow it down with. So I'm going to go knock it down 10 instead of 20. So we're going to be at 85. 85. And then let's see, 85. We're going to go at 10 one more time. And this will be 95. And I wish you could select all of these at once. And I wish these had, right now they don't have a way to animate these with keyframes. That would be ideal. It would be amazing. And then we're going to set the last one to 100. Okay. So now we can check our animation. All you have to do is press the space bar once you're in the timeline. And look at that. We've got some animation going on. Are you kidding me? And we're kind of ready to start timing out and doing all of the rest of the animation. I want to select all of these layers, all the grow layers, put them in a group. And you'll notice everything is mirroring exact. Oops, I missed one. Hold on. Everything that's happening in the layers panel is also happening over here in our timeline. I'm going to name this grow. And now we're talking about timing. So I'm going to zoom out, pop out just a little bit. I'm going to move hone down. You can even use the window, the timeline as layer panel as I'm moving things over here. Moving hone down to where it needs to be. But I want to turn everything back on so we can just lay out our timing. Did I lose something? Oh, there, and leave. There we go. All right, so as we see this happening, you just have grow animated. I want a way to pop in as we start to finish this grow. So I'm just going to grab everything and slide it back to there. And then I'm going to hit Control or Command and deselect the away and the arrow and slide everything else back. And this is all to taste. So whatever the timing is you think feels right, that's what you should probably do. Let's see. Move that back. I'm going to move everything else back as well. And we can take a look at this. I don't think it's quite there yet. I think it's really fast. Oh, that's not too bad, actually. Might be a little fast here. Pull this back. Pull this back. And I do want, I'm working on my craft to pop up like right at the end almost. Just so that maybe you'll have to watch it again to see what it said. Potentially. But we're not done yet. We want to animate hone just like we did with grow, except we're going to go in reverse. The delay adds drama. I agree. I agree. All right, we're going to take this down to one frame. We're going to pop in here, and then we'll just start making copies. Hone, copy. We need 8 of these again. And like I said, we're going to go with an ease in, ease out, but it's also going to be more, kind of an organic look as opposed to straightforward and back. Just holding down Shift to grab these, Control, Command to release that bottom one. If it decides to operate, there's a little bit of a lag. We'll get there, I promise. I promise we'll get there. All right, so this last one, I'm going to do the same thing and drag the trim out for the full 3 seconds. And it's okay if it goes past as well. But let's jump on this. And this needs to be at its full, at its fullest, because we're going to be bringing it down. So 100, 100. And then increments of 5 again. So we're going 95 and 95. I'm not animating the lift on this one. I like the way it looks where it is. 85. 85. So that's an increment of 10. Now we're increments of 20 again. 65. 65. 45. Again, check my math. I think we'll be okay. 45, 25, 25. And now we're going to do slowing it down to increments of 10. And we're going to go 15, 15, and then 5, and then 0. So we should be good. Now we should be able to preview this. Yeah, there we go. We've got a preview. Everything's looking good, I think. Let's just take a full screen look at it. Oh, sorry, bumping through everything. Hello, there we go. All right, so we could play this back. Okay, cool. So now that we're at this point, we can talk about a couple of little things. So if you noticed in the example, and I didn't think we'd have time to, these have a wiggle. The away and leave me to have a wiggle, and I can show you that real quick. I think we'll have time. I think we'll have time to animate that. So I like the timing of this. We'll just try to do away. And I put this on the 4s, so it's going to be every frame. It's 4 frames of the same, and then after that 4th frame, there'll be a change in the variable. And so if you look, this is called CC this man, this monster, and we have a whole different set of variables. This one's a lot of fun, and I chose this one because of the wonk value, just full transparency, full clarity. I had to use it once I saw that there was a wonk value, and that's actually what we're animating. So it also has a chew and a bite, and I can show you guys what that looks like. Here's with a chew on. It's got a little rough edge, which is really cool. And then this has a bite, which it takes away some chunks. That's kind of cool too. But we're going to do away real quick. I'm going to animate this. I'm going to make this 4 frames. So bam, 1, 2, 3, 4. Trim this out to 4. And this is going to be a little bit different. Go back into our layers panel. Oh, I should probably put hone in a group just to kind of reduce some of that. All right, so back up to away. And what I'm going to do here is leave the first one, make a copy, drag this over, just like we've done before, but I'm going to change this to 5. So now you can see that there's a wiggle happening. But instead of just doing a bunch of copies at once, I'm going to copy the layer underneath because it already has the setting that I want, that 10. I'm going to Alt and drag up and make a copy. Select the layer below it so that it has the variable increment that we want. And I'm just picking the one below until we get all the ones we need. And it should be going back and forth. I hope this makes sense. Let's drag these out and see if we have enough. I don't think we do yet. Not quite. Probably like 3 more, maybe 3 or 4 more. Let's see. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, there we go. Let's see. We're still on. Let's see. Is that one good? Yeah, we're still good. Almost there. I think this will do it. Not quite. Almost there. Okay. Last one. Last copy. But it goes a lot faster with fewer frames you have. Now, if we hit playback, you'll see that there's a wiggle on away. And yeah, that's how you can animate variables. Now, if you were doing this, this is probably going to be a little bit easier in other programs, but we're just showing you how to do this in Photoshop, just in case you want to make some quick GIFs or anything like that. But that's going to do it for today's challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But yeah, stick around for Tyler Pate and the Illustrator Creative Challenge coming up right after this. Be sure to join our Discord so that you can get feedback. I'll be a mentor this next couple of weeks. There are other mentors in there as well. But yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Have a good one.